Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today's Thursday, February 19, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. The descendants of slaves are fighting an attempt to use eminent domain to carve a spur through one of Georgia's largest Black-owned farms. The Trump administration continues to show its blatant racism against African Americans. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth invited a white Christian nationalist pastor who's made offensive racist remarks regarding slavery to pray at the Pentagon. Yesterday, Donald Trump had the help at the White House for his Black History Month reception. You had this one black woman who stood up there and said, "Don't y'all dare call Trump a racist." That sister needs a history lesson, as in, the last year. He helped lead North Carolina as governor, and now Roy Cooper wants to be United States Senator. I will share you with my interview with him. Plus, continue honoring the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. We'll talk with his son, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, Dr. Cornel West, and a longtime family friend, Reverend Father Pfleger. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
A black Georgia family is waiting for a three-judge panel to decide whether they can keep their land, which has been in their family for 100 years. The Smith family says the Tarbutton-owned Sandersville Railroad Company wants their property to build a rail spur to haul gravel from a local quarry. In 2024, the Georgia Public Service Commission granted the Tarbutton-owned Sandersville Road Company eminent domain authority, allowing it to seize private property. Now, the family's been fighting ever since. Adam Mahoney, the climate and environment reporter for Capital B, has been following this story. He joins us right now. Adam, glad to have you here. Walk us through this. This stuff harkens back to slavery Reconstruction days, correct? I can't hear you. You must be on mute. Guys, please check the mics. Are you on mute?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this does date back to slavery. Specifically, in this case, the Benjamin Tarbutton family was the descendants. He is the descendant of one of the largest slave-owning families in all of Washington County. His great-great-grandfather owned over 75 slaves. And the Smith family, who his railroad is now trying to carve through, are descendants of enslaved people in that county. So we're seeing how kind of the power brokers and what is at play does date back to your point, Reconstruction and political clout.
Okay, so this land, how much acreage are we talking about that they're trying to put under eminent domain?
Yeah, so the Smith family, they own 600 acres of land in Middle Georgia. The family has owned the land for 100 years now, and it's deeded to 6 members of the family, brothers and sisters, who some of which still live on that land. The Sandersville Railroad is attempting to cut through basically the heart of that land that they would only receive about 12 acres through eminent domain, but what it would do would basically shut the family off from the rest of their land. They would have to cross a railroad to get to the other half of their land. And this is a process, like you mentioned, that has been going on since 2023. It was first approved by the Georgia Public Service Commission, and is now going through an appeal process through the Fulton County court system.
And what recourse does the family really have? I mean, they're just hoping the court intervenes?
That's pretty much all they have at this point. It is going through its second round of appeals. If it does not get appealed at this level, it can go all the way up to the Georgia Supreme Court or potentially the U.S. Supreme Court. But what this case really hinges on is the aftermath of a 2004 Supreme Court ruling that found states can grant eminent domain to private companies under the guise of quote unquote economic development, even if the economic benefits of the project are not evenly felt or even kind of outlined before that process happens. So what we're seeing here in Georgia is a supposed economic benefit of $1 million a year to this county, Hancock County in rural Georgia. But there's really no proof that that would even come to fruition.
Is the family saying there's an economic cost here? And if so, how much is it?
An economic cost for the family, I mean, there is, but the biggest thing they're standing on is really their rights and dignity. In this pocket of Georgia, the town they live in, Sparta, is the second poorest city of over 1,000 people in Georgia. It's the second blackest city in Georgia. And their family, along with other families who are impacted by this eminent domain case, have fought really hard to have access to ownership of land. And that means something different in a place where you really do, you're either the descendant of slavery or the descendant of a slave owner. That power lies more so kind of in the meaning more than the economic prowess for folks there.
Absolutely. I mean, this is obviously, are there any other families impacted beyond the Smith family?
Yeah, so there are 11 families directly impacted by the eminent domain case, in addition to dozens of other families where the railroad would run directly behind their home. And this is an older community, like I said, on top of it being an impoverished community. So these are a lot of folks that they're living on fixed incomes. They don't have the ability to leave, if so, and they would be living in the aftermath of a railroad that would be hauling rocks from a quarry. So that means there would be an environmental impact too in terms of air pollution, and potentially if there was a derailment or something of that sort, an impact on their water supply.
Gotcha. Any idea when the court is going to rule?
Yesterday, there was a hearing where the 3-court panel did hear oral arguments from both sides, including the attorneys representing the Smith family and the other families at play, in addition to an attorney representing the Tar Button-owned Sandersville Railroad Company. So the next steps in the coming weeks, and another court case date will be put on the books. But as of right now, it's kind of a waiting game for these families as they've been struggling through it over the last couple of years.
Gotcha. All right then. Well, great reporting here. We will continue to look for this and see what happens next.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, go to Capital B to check out their coverage of this. Do y'all have the website pulled up? We should have the site pulled up, so go to Capital B, look at the reporting. This is a black-owned media company, and so it's important for us to support their work, and we talked about that last night, folks. The need to support independent black media. And so that is critically important. So again, if you go to capitalbnews.org, capitalbnews.org, you can certainly support their work. And if you go to their site and then you click the donate button, you will see it right there. And so go to my iPad, you see it right here, and so you can lay out different amounts here. And so again, it's critically important that we support Black-owned media doing the type of coverage that you're not seeing anywhere else. And so again, go to capitalbnews.org to support them. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Adam.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. Let's talk about, well, actually, we'll do this here. I'm going to go to a break, and we come back. We're going to talk about the racist who prayed at the Pentagon, and we're going to also show you how some black folks made a complete ass of themselves at the White House for Donald Trump's Black History Month program. That clearly shows, let's just say, we knew who would have turned Harriet in. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
How you doing? I'm Mark Curry, and you're watching the Black Star Network. That's why I got these glasses on, because that black star is bright.
Folks, the U.S. Department of Defense facing backlash after the grossly unqualified Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth invited a racist white Christian nationalist who calls himself a Paleo-Confederate to lead a prayer at the Pentagon. The pastor is Doug Wilson, who has said some of the most grossly despicable things regarding slavery. Last year, when opening a church in Washington, Wilson told CNN it was part of his plan to make the United States a Christian nation. He's described his politics as slightly to the right of Confederate General J.E.B. Stuart. It says immigrants are entering the country in a parasitic way. Do y'all have some of this little prayer? Go ahead and play it. Pull it up.
I didn't hear a word.
Come on, pull the audio up.
We just came screaming in. I'm sure it was fantastic. We were held up at the White House for meetings, as you can imagine. I won't try to add to it. I just want to, first of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership, for your mentorship, for the things you've started, the truth you've told, your willingness to be bold. It's the type of thing that we're trying to exercise here, too, with the monthly worship service, is to pause and recognize who is at the wheel, who is sovereign in all of these things, the scale and scope of which we can't possibly imagine sometimes, and outcomes we cannot foresee. But there is no plan B, only God's plan of plan A. And I'll just tell a brief story. I was undertaking a mission of writing a book called Battle for the American Mind. It was about K through 12 education, and working with a man named David Goodwin, who's the president of the Association of Classical Christian Schools. an association that was started by Pastor Doug Wilson, and where many of our kids go to school. And we were working on a project, and I was just a Fox News guy at that point, and David thought it prudent to, because it would touch on so much of what ACCS does, talk to Doug about it and say, hey, are you comfortable with this partnership? And because there's plenty of things that people will say about you in every phase of your life. And I'll never forget when David came back, and we'd never met, we'd never spoken at that point. And he just said, Doug asked a more or less.
Okay, I can't listen to any more bullshit. Okay, so Pete Hegseth, oh my God, how amazing he is. Really? So there's a website called DougWilsonSays.com that's actually tracked the racist, misogynistic, sexist things this man has said. Doug Wilson says the Christians who owned slaves in the South were on firm scriptural ground. Okay? This is a quote from Doug Wilson. The radical abolitionists, now mind you, the radical abolitionists maintained that slave owning was inherently immoral under any circumstance. But in this matter, the Christians who owned slaves in the South were on firm scriptural ground. May a Christian own slaves even when this makes him a part of a larger pagan system which is not fully scriptural or perhaps not scriptural at all. Provided he owns them in conformity to Christ's laws governing such situations, the Bible is clear that under such conditions, Christians may own slaves. He also said, on the slavery issue, the drums of war were being beaten by the abolitionists, who were in turn driven by a zealous hatred of the word. To the extent that slavery was an issue, the radical abolitionists were in conflict with the teaching of the New Testament. Oh, this one here. When the Confederate States of America surrendered at Appomattox, the last nation of the older order fell. So because historians like to have set dates on which to hang their hats, we may say the first Christendom died there in 1865. The American South was the last nation of the first Christendom. That is, y'all, Doug Wilson. But we shouldn't be shocked because it's Pete Hegseth who wanted to return and did the Confederate symbols, arguing that, oh, it was woke. It was woke. Remember them taking down the data from the websites regarding Medgar Evers at Arlington National Cemetery and Jackie Robinson and others, removing information when it came to women in the military and blacks in the military. Oh, let's talk about restoring the portrait of Robert E. Lee, that white domestic terrorist, to West Point. This is who Donald Trump is. And see, what you have is, you have an administration that embraces racist, embraces white nationalists. They can openly serve. So yesterday, when the help was at the White House for Donald Trump's Black History Month reception, it was amazing to listen to how they praise Massa for how wonderful he is and how he has done amazing things for them. And there was one particular person, and it's no disrespect on this sister. It's fine, I'll play it myself. It's no disrespect on this sister, but I'm sorry, I gotta say it. So for Alicia Cook, who is from Washington, D.C., she had a grandchild who was killed as a result of gunfire in Washington, D.C. And so she goes to the podium and she says this about the great white savior, Donald Trump.
One thing I like about him, he keeps it real just like Grandma. I appreciate that because I can trust him because he tells exactly how he feels and what he thinks. Thank God for this president. I am filled, my cup runneth over. Because he allowed his constituents, his people to come to my house to interview me, to talk about the murder of my grandson. It seemed like nobody cared. I'm an advocate for murder. I marched. I rallied. I pulled out other families in the District of Columbia that had murders and did not have answers. Ooh. We marched and we rallied, and nobody heard me, Democrats. Get mad at me. Until this Republican sent his constituents, his people out there to interview me in my home. Have you ever heard of a thing? Then they invited me twice before Congress to testify for the beautiful bill that's going to change crime in the district. If you kill somebody, Okay? You take a life, you do life. Just that simple. If you do a harsh crime, you do harsh time. Just that simple. And if we need National Guard, and which we did years ago, he brought it on. I love him. I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff. And don't be looking at me on the news hating on me because I'm standing up for somebody that deserves to be stand up for. Get off the man's back. Let him do his job. He's doing the right thing. Back up off of him. And Grandma said it.
Okay, so Felicia, you don't want us to hear you. You don't want us to criticize you. Okay, Felicia, if you were sitting in that chair or in this studio, then I would look you in your eye and I would ask you to defend this. You talked about the murder of your grandchild, and you said Democrats didn't hear you. You said that they allowed you to testify before Congress. Can you please tell me which party has been trying to control the out-of-control guns in this country? Is it Trump, MAGA, and the Republicans, or is it Democrats? I'll wait. While you're at it, for Alicia, let me remind you that when Donald Trump initially got back into the White House, Donald Trump did something. And maybe you should go talk to that black family. Maybe you should go talk to the black family of a man who died. That man who died was Hilton Brown. Felicia, maybe you didn't see this story from March of 2025. DC officers reinstated after conviction in man's scooter crash death pardoned by Trump. For Felicia and all of you who are the help with the White House, let me remind y'all that these two officers, Terrence Sutton and Lieutenant Andrew Zabavsky, as you see, the story says here from NBC Washington, Hilton Brown, Karan Hilton Brown, had been riding a motorbike without a helmet as Sutton pursued him in an unmarked car. Prosecutors said the chase went on for 10 blocks before Sutton followed Hilton Brown down an alley at what prosecutors call an unreasonable speed. When Hilton Brown left the alley, he was hit by a car, suffered head trauma, and died in a hospital a few days later. He was 20 years old and the father of an infant. Felicia, it says the U.S. Attorney for D.C. says Sutton and Zabavsky failed to preserve the crash scene for investigators and turn off their body cameras. This is the quote from the prosecutor. As Mr. Hilton Brown lay unconscious in the street in a pool of his own blood, Sutton and Zabavsky agreed to cover up what Sutton had done to prevent any further investigation of the incident. The office said in a statement that went to trial, Felicia, and the officers were convicted and sentenced, but Donald Trump chose to let them off. Felicia, I'm not done. In Los Angeles, there was a Los Angeles County sheriff who was convicted and found guilty of federal civil rights violations. This is the DOJ website for using excessive force against a woman. So this woman was videotaping the officers arresting and beating a man outside of a supermarket in June of 2023. And so it says here that Kirk and another deputy, they were responding to a possible robbery at the store. They arrived on the scene and handcuffed and detained a man matching the description, while the victim, identified in court documents as JH, who matched the description of the female suspect, recorded the deputies on her cell phone. While recording, J.H. told Kirk that he had a legal obligation to inform the man of the basis of a forced detention and that she was broadcasting his actions on social media. Well, Kirk then decided to pepper spray her, and then he also placed his knee on the woman's shoulder and cocked his right arm back with a clenched fist. Stop or you're going to get punched in the face. Kirk then pressed his knees into her neck. She said, get your neck off my, I can't breathe. So Felicia, do you care about that black woman? Oh, I'm sorry. You heard me say that he was convicted. But the new U.S. attorney for Donald Trump then came in and offered him a post-conviction plea bargain. I'm sorry, Felicia, allow me to say it again. He was tried. He was indicted, tried, convicted. And as they were preparing for the sentencing, the new U.S. attorney comes in and says, we are going to offer him a post-conviction plea deal. It was something that rarely ever happens. It was very strange. Oh, and the prosecutors in the case, they actually stepped off. So what happened for Alicia? He was allowed to plead guilty to a misdemeanor after the felony conviction. Okay, for Alicia, since you say he's not a racist, I don't want to hear that racist stuff. Did you know that there was a settlement in Alabama where black people had sewage backing up into their yards and backing up into their house because white officials would not properly install sewage lines and pipes there? Under Biden-Harris, a settlement was reached in order to fix the problem. Oh, but your savior, your little G God, Donald Trump, the man who you sat there and fully embraced, that man, for Alicia, canceled the settlement by calling it a DEI settlement. Felicia, you may not watch this show, and so you may not be aware that there's a group of black people in Louisiana in what is called Cancer Alley who are suing petrochemical companies because black people are dying there due to the chemicals from those plants. There was a lawsuit, and the Biden administration had joined the lawsuit. Oh, Felicia, did you know that your little G God, when he came in, pulled out of the lawsuit by citing DEI? So you say Donald Trump, it cares about the murder of your grandchild, but he didn't give a damn about the literal killing of black people in Cancer Alley there in Louisiana. Felicia, you may not watch this show. They may not have covered it in Washington, D.C., but that was a HOA in Dallas that had been discriminating against black and low-income people. It was a 2-year investigation. The Biden administration was ready to take it to court. Oh, but your little G white savior God, Donald Trump, canceled the investigation. They were cited as DEI. Also, when there was a hurricane in Texas, the federal government sent billions of dollars to Texas. Well, the Republican Governor Greg Abbott refused to send money to Harris County because he didn't like that it was blue. And so that would negatively impacted black and Latino people. For Alicia, Donald Trump canceled that as well. Felicia, you may not realize that there's a federal procurement program where some $700 billion is spent on federal contracts. Well, the DBE program generates some $37 billion of the $700 billion. You may not realize that 2 white men in Indiana filed a lawsuit saying that the program was unfair. Felicia, were you aware that Donald Trump's minions in court said that Donald Trump wants to get rid of the entire program? Oh, now, in 2024, under Biden-Harris, black businesses got $10 billion of the money. Now, mind you, that's only 2% of the total program, but it was the largest amount ever. But your little G, small God, the white supremacist himself, Donald Trump, they said they want to get rid of the program. Felicia, see, I'm not done breaking this thing down because we can go story for story. See, I don't even have to go back to the 70s when Donald Trump and his daddy was hit with by HUD with an investigation for refusing to rent apartments to black people. I don't have to go back to the allegations of racism against Atlantic City employees. I don't have to go back to all kind of other stuff this man did. See, I could talk about just what happened last year. We could talk about the Pentagon, HHS. We could talk about the canceling of billions of dollars in grants for black maternal health. That's for black women to be taken care of while they are pregnant. Oh, but the pro-lifers say they care about life. They cancel scientific grants. Oh, I know your little G God stood up and talked about how he guaranteed funding for HBCUs. Let me correct you. That was a program put in place under George W. Bush, reauthorized under President Obama. It ended. Trump had no idea about this program. The bill was put forth by Congresswoman Alma Adams of North Carolina, the co-chair of the HBCU caucus. Trump had no idea. Oh, Trump said that, oh my goodness, we're locking down the funding of this. Well, here's the problem for Alicia. It's only some $225 million. The HBCU portion is about $85 million of the $225 million. The rest goes to Hispanic serving institutions. They're 107. So can you tell me how 107 really gonna do something with 85 million? This is what happens when you have real facts. Donald Trump has targeted black people. Felicia, you talk about your grandson being killed in Washington, D.C., and that is highly unfortunate, and I understand your pain. But when Donald Trump's Doge got rid of USAID, do you know how many people are expected to be killed in Africa as a result of that? PEPFAR, really the greatest thing that George W. Bush did as president. Do you know they pulled that funding so they don't care about HIV/AIDS in Africa? Can we talk about the books being pulled, the books being canceled at West Point? Can we talk about what has been happening, how they have been targeting colleges and universities? We can literally lay out a whole buffet of anti-black legislation, an anti-black agenda by Donald Trump. But because they came to visit you at your house and sit with you and invite you to a meeting, you decided to go before the national cameras and hug your man and talk about how amazing he is. And you talked about how wonderful and how great he is. And you said, I don't want to hear none of that stuff about racism. And then white women like Savannah Chrisley, they go on The View, and then what they do is repeat the same nonsense, which is devoid of facts. So here's what happened this morning.
For me to witness is people stating that the president is a racist, because I've seen him firsthand. He saved one of my best friend's lives, a black woman who has been with him for 18 years. So he has a black friend. He's a racist. No, he saved her life. No, he did.
Okay. He's a racist. Here's the problem, Savannah, and why we have a different take on it. Many of us have a different take on it, because when you target DEI programs with executive office, with executive orders, your first week in office, arguing that the policies undermine national unity. You know, when you shared racist posts about the Obamas, when you pursued the death penalty for the exonerated 5, after you knew they had been exonerated. These are the reasons that his behavior is so hard. And I don't know whether you know about this, but in the 70s, he was accused of discriminating against black tenants because he wouldn't rent to them. He didn't want them to build.
Was that an accusation?
No, that was a proven fact. They took him to court. They took him to court.
The lawsuit was settled.
Y'all, it's real easy to find black folks who can dance for massa. You got that Negro preacher out of Detroit, Lorenzo Sewell, who thought he was delivering his I Have a Dream speech during the inauguration, calling the Obamas the most evil ever. Same thing. But when you lay out all of these anti-black things, can y'all dispute them? The answer is no. Let me remind people, and it's very clear, there often were black people who went and told massa when people of African descent were trying to escape. Do know that there were people who informed on civil rights leaders to the FBI. Do know that in that picture of Dr. King shot on the balcony of Lorraine Motel, one of the first people who was there kneeling where his head is was an undercover CIA agent. Let me be clear, there were undercover informants who were sitting next to Malcolm X. There were undercover folk informing on the Black Panthers. So it has always been in our history very easy to find anti-black people doing the bidding of white oppressors. My panel, Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show, Sirius XM Radio, airs every Saturday on Sirius XM. Glad to have her here. We've got Cameron Trimble, CEO, Hip Politics Media and former White House senior advisor, joining us from D.C. Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University from D.C. as well. Reese, take it away.
Well, I mean, you done said everything, Roland, but I was trying. I don't want to be calling a black granny all kind of MFs and Bs and stuff. So I'm just going to have some grace because she's probably still hurting and traumatized. But I do think it is important to point out this whole notion that nobody cared. The person who murdered her grandson was convicted and sentenced to 16 years in jail. So, and it wasn't like random violence. It wasn't like a carjacking or something like that. And Donald Trump was the president when her grandson went missing. And he was found in Maryland. Larry Hogan, Republican, was the governor. So there's no correlation or connection between who was in charge and her grandson's death. So I don't even understand what point she's getting at other than to do the bidding of white nationalists, to be a foot soldier. But what I do take issue with, I'm gonna set her aside because I ain't gonna drag Granny. That's I'm not gonna do that. What I do take issue with is this is supposed to be a Black History Month celebration. And what you have to offer up in terms of Black history is a 22-year-old kid getting killed by an online date's boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. That's Black history. Like, we ain't been in this country for centuries. Like, we haven't contributed all kinds of inventions, all kinds of advancement. Like, we don't have a rich history that's worth celebrating in and of itself. Now, I know that you're not going to get people of substance and any kind of stature to come to the White House, but y'all can have a little lecture. Y'all can have a little history lesson, because Donald Trump didn't even know that Frederick Douglass was dead, okay, when he went to the Black Smithsonian. So there's clearly work to be done, but this is more propaganda from this White House to try to paint Black people, to paint Black-run cities as savages, overrun by crime, so that they can engage in their lawlessness. So in addition to all the racism and all the things that you've already laid out, it's just a slap in the face that this is even a topic at a Black History Month celebration at the White House.
Cameron?
Yeah, I'm not going to go in on Granny because I think we all have, I don't know if we all have, but I even know some folks and for friends and family who have still seemed to be under some veil or some under
Hell
some
no,
solution.
ain't nobody in my damn family. Not my brother, not my sisters,
I have
not
some
my
interesting
cousins.
conversations.
I don't know. Ain't nobody rolling up in the Martin Lamont family with a Make America Great Again hat. Trust me, bring your ass with that bullshit, you're gonna get checked.
I hear you. When I say family, I mean the broader family of Black folks in general, in the sense that you laid it out quite quite nicely, just in the sense like we can trace all the way back to slavery or even back to Africa in terms of some. There's always been Black folks that have been there helping the oppressor for whatever reason, whether financial gain or just straight up brainwashing. But what I will speak to from a personal experience, having been in the White House during Black History Month, like I think one of the seeing the juxtaposition of no celebration of actual history and accomplishments of Black folks versus what we were able to do in the last administration, coming out of the pandemic, and the first ever public gathering post-pandemic was the 2022 Black History Month program, and just seeing the joy in one room and just kind of like the denigration of Black folks in another, and more importantly, I think in a month like this, when there's just been a year plus of erasure, of disrespect of Black folks, of disrespects of Black people in the military, all of our contributions in the government, in the culture, in the arts, removing so many folks out of their jobs. It's just disheartening. I don't understand how we're still arguing whether he's racist or not. I mean, I think that's baked into the cake, and the people who vote for him either know that publicly or at least know that in their heart. Like, there's no way around that. So it always feels like we're kind of almost being baited into an argument that we can't really win with people who don't want to believe us, but we still need to keep calling it out. Donald Trump is racist.
Hey, but look, and here's the whole deal. I'm gonna lay out the facts, Greg. I did that, Granny, and I had some little punk, sitting here, Javon. I think he worked for that fool. Worked for that fool, Byron Donalds. I said, I dare you to bring your ass on this show. Talk about the policy. Let's go. See, they want. So it's real easy to say, I don't want to hear no racist stuff. Okay, we gonna show you all the anti-Black stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if you support Donald Trump, you're either a racist, an opportunist, or you've been promised something or received something already. Those are the only ways you can support him. As for Miss Cook, listen, Gil Scott-Heron had a song, Inner City Blues, and he said, another set of victims, too whipped to choose. You recognize that feeling. It's the inner city blues. So, I mean, Miss Felicia Cook has the inner city blues. She said I give her not only credit, but much respect as a recovering addict, as a self-described recovering addict. She said, I was an addict 31 years clean. She said, when my grandbaby was born, I decided to change my life. And that young man lost his life in Southeast DC, killed by a man almost twice his age. Apparently, he was having sex with this woman that this other guy was dealing with. This guy who got the 16 years, as you said, Reese, sentenced by a judge that was appointed by Barack Obama. The judge that gave him 16 years. She's a member of the Asian American Pacific Bar Association. I'm sure that would drive Donald Trump crazy. But I'm raising all those things as a backdrop to say that she has no factual support for anything she's saying. She herself's not a racist, I wouldn't assume. But I don't assume anything about Black people simply because of the color of their skin. Now, she claims to be a Christian. And I think she's the kind of Christian that Pastor Doug Wilson would absolutely embrace, because Wilson is a purebred white supremacist and an open enemy to our common humanity. And he is not a Christian. This is the damage of Christianity. Let me just be kind of candid here for a moment. She is a Christian in the mold of the slave master's religion. There are many Christians. You talked to Freddie Haynes last night. And of course, Jeremiah Wright, we can name them, Vashti McKenzie. Go down the list. Many people who say you're a Christian. Those white people are not Christians like you're Christians. You're not praying to the same God. And finally, when we break their political backs, early voting in Texas, North Carolina, if you're in there, make sure your registration is tight and go in there and vote. We got to break their political backs. When we roll over these racists like to see, we will be doing it on behalf of victims like Felicia Cook, who has been driven crazy by her grief, who clearly received an inferior education here, as we talked during Black History Month, as Carl G. Woodson would say, the miseducation of the Negro. It's a miseducation Negro. And as far as that Negro who is hollering and calling out of Detroit, the young man who has clearly been misshapen by his own diseducation, we're going to get some measure of justice for all of you. But what you won't get as we do this is another opportunity to speak in public on a platform, because you need to have a complete re-education. Right now, you're a victim, a pawn, and that's just too bad.
Yeah, absolutely. If y'all want to see a level of stupidity, the other day Keith Ellison was testifying before a Senate hearing, and something stupid happened. Something like just dumb happened. Y'all don't have a video? Okay. Okay, well, fine. Well, so, yeah, I was watching this questioning, and they were jamming Keith Ellison up about this alleged fraud in Minneapolis, and they were hitting them all up about that, and so they were asking him all these questions, and okay, I got it. And then this one elected official then did something. I didn't know what the hell where he was going. He all of a sudden, I don't know, y'all. He all of a sudden begins to ask Ellison about something Farrakhan said. Now, when I saw the clip, I went, what that boy talking about? So the first thing I said was, okay, was it something new Farrakhan said? No. Y'all, it wasn't nothing, it wasn't something new. This fool literally asked Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who's Muslim, he decided to ask him something about Farrakhan calling a gutter religion, Judaism a gutter religion. I said, wait, let me go. You mean 42 years ago? When Keith Ellison was 20? Hold up, let me try to play this.
Certainly know who Renee Good and Alex Preddy are.
I do.
Yeah, so obviously your priorities are clearly obvious. Tell me about Temple Israel. What happened there?
Well, my dear friend of mine is the lead rabbi at Temple Israel.
Could you just answer my question, please?
Well, a lot of things happen there. Do you have something in mind you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, any particular incidents happen of anti-Semitism?
Well, there have been acts of anti-Semitism there.
What have you done about it?
Of which I oppose vigorously. We've supported local law enforcement in doing the right thing in those communities. I mean, let me tell you, you're asking me about a place I know a lot about. I've been to Temple Israel an untold number of times, and so if they ever have any security concerns, that is a concern of mine.
And
absolutely.
So what have you actually done differently to help fight anti-Semitism in Minnesota?
I speak against anti-Semitism. I condemn it as repugnant and wrong.
Let's pause there. You speak against anti-Semitism. Will you condemn Louis Farrakhan's comments saying that Judaism is a dirty religion?
You know, sir, I thought I was coming here to talk about immigration policy.
That was a layup question, by the way.
No. I thought I was talking about immigration policy. I didn't know that we were going to be talking about all these matters. I mean, I'm reluctant to just sort of, I mean, we already had one thing where we didn't mention immigration policy at all. I'm fine with you asking about questions around asylum and things like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. but now we're going off in all kind of different directions. I think there should be some scope to this hearing. And so thank you for your interest, and we both share a need to condemn anti-Semitism.
A few of my colleagues have gone over time, Mr. Chairman. So I find it disgusting that we would have a witness who's the Attorney General of the state that will not condemn the fact that somebody said that Judaism is a dirty religion. The fact that we have a witness of that low caliber here before the United States Congress is an insult to this institution.
Greg, I'm just gonna go ahead and call it what it is. That was bitch assness. You're asking the Attorney General of Minnesota to condemn a comment that was made when he was 20. The man is 62.
I'm glad that Keith Ellison didn't respond. And in his defense, that's Bernie Moreno, a piece of a man, a crook from a crooked family in Colombia, a family of bankers and grifters. This man himself is a racist. He has joined the Ohio delegation of the White Nationalist Party in not condemning most of the White Nationalist Party delegation from Ohio, in not condemning the faces of Barack and Michelle Obama posted on apes. Maybe if I were Attorney General Ellison, I would have said, I'll condemn that the minute you make a statement on putting the President of the United States and First Lady's faces on apes. You first. No, actually, I probably would have said, well, with all due respect, it is you, Bernie Moreno. So I'm going to leave it at that. These are the stupid citizens of Ohio who voted for him, and too many others who did not go to the polls to make sure that Sherrod Brown was in that seat instead of Bernie Moreno. That piece of a man is in the federal legislature because of our inaction. Yes, I said it, Dayton and Cincinnati and Cleveland. Yes, I said it, Youngstown. Yes, I said it, every place in Ohio. If you are disgusted by what you just heard, that piece of a man say to the Attorney General, who entered Islam through the Nation of Islam when he was a young man, I think he was in college when he joined. If you were disgusted by that, the time to do something about that was the election to put him in the seat. And guess what? Brown is running for re-election now to take the other seat. Maybe if you don't like it, maybe you can counter that by putting somebody next to him, and then Ohio will have one senator, because right now they don't have any.
Cameron.
Man, these kind of gotcha questions and in our clipping culture, where that one clip will be isolated and say, hey, he didn't condemn Louis Farrakhan and look at him being anti-Semitic, and they'll try to run that into the ground for ads against Keith Ellison, or probably try to tie that around any other Democrat in Minnesota or other places. But I love the way Keith Ellison handled that. Clearly, as he stated, he decries and condemns anti-Semitism and has worked actually aggressively to root it out. But for that senator to kind of go all over the place in something that was around immigration, and it just was disingenuous, wasn't serving my home state of Ohio. My home state of Ohio. To Dr. Carr's point, I wish we had showed up and showed out a little bit better in the last election around that. But I want to call out not just the senators, but everybody around those senators, the staff, the folks who allow those kind of questions to go ahead. And then I also need to call out Democrats and those Democratic colleagues that were on the dais, because then what senators can do is come in and check their colleagues on questions and those gotcha questions like that. They have the power when they get that minute or they get those couple minutes to answer those questions. That's what they need to call out, because if you just let a clip like that stand, we know how the internet will take it. We know how advertisers and Republican advertisers will take it and try to use that, twist that, and feed the misinformation beast that is all over the internet. And so I call on those fellow senators and fellow members of Congress, when you see your colleagues trying to catch people up in these inappropriate gotcha questions, you need to call out. So there's actual footage of you standing up and condemning that as well.
A 42-year-old comment. Will you sit before us and condemn this, Reese? Keith Ellison said, man, take your silly ass on.
Yeah, maybe you need to watch some of Mayor Brandon Scott's conferences or Mayor Brandon Johnson in Chicago, because he would have smacked it up, flipped it, rubbed it down. It would have been a whole situation, and you wouldn't have got the clip that you thought you was going to get from Brandon Johnson. I mean, at the end of the day, Democrats got to stop being so afraid of what's going to be clipped. It's going to be clipped anyway. They could just make AI at this point. So you trying not to give them a clip, you need to have a backbone. And I did appreciate that he was like, that's not even within the scope. But y'all don't have some clapbacks. I mean, Pam Bondi goes to every fucking hearing with a goddamn burn book and shit. Oh, let me see who was in there. Oh, okay. Oh, senator. Oh, congressperson. Y'all, you can shoot from the hip. Y'all need to have some ready in the clip to go. So, you know, but at the end of the day, this is what he wanted to do, what Moreno wanted to do.
Yep.
Was he wanted to assert his dominance. He wanted to assert his authority. He wanted to be on a clip smacking down a black man, talking about low caliber, this other kind of shit. And see, is what is important, to deny them. You have to deny them this authority and this dominance that they're trying to do. Fuck a clip. Fuck, oh, well, somebody gonna take this any kind of way. You gotta give them who you talking to. I know you're not talking to me. Low caliber where, bitch? Like, maybe you don't say bitch. Maybe you don't say motherfucker like I do.
Or how about this here? You gonna ask me about something 42 years old? I'm like, hey, are you gonna condemn this comment from 38 years ago? Are you gonna condemn you a senator? You gonna condemn Strom Thurmond? Matter of fact, I want you to condemn Jesse Helms. I would have hit his ass with some shit in the last 42 years and said, you gonna condemn that? Are you gonna condemn that? Are you gonna I would have hit him with 5, 6, 7. I would have said, hey, Marino, have you condemned Trump in the video showing the Obamas as apes?
Well, these are the same motherfuckers that duck and run and hide every time Trump says something. Oh, I didn't see. Mike Johnson is the most know-nothing ass motherfucking speaker in the history of goddamn the U.S. House of Representatives. He don't never know nothing. He ain't never seen it. He ain't got the information on nothing. And so these are people that don't even want to speak to what's currently headline news every single day. So at a minimum, I'm going to give it to y'all. How dare you lecture me? At least get that out. How dare you? Get that. If you can't do that, how dare you? That's the minimum, bare minimum, because it don't matter what the context is. All they want to do is smack your black ass down and try to denigrate you and delegitimize them. Do not give them an opportunity to do that. And like I said, Brandon Johnson be giving them the business every single time. Watch some Brandon Johnson.
Yeah, we play him all the time. And listen,
yeah, that's how you do it.
That little silly ass question.
Clap back.
That little silly ass question deserves the universal black response. Move your ass on. Hey y'all, the slavery exhibit in Philadelphia that Donald Trump dismantled. Federal judge said that shit get back put up. This is Mayor Sherelle Parker going out today, thanking the folks for putting it back up.
Fellas, I just wanted to say thank you all so very much, Sherelle Parker, and the mayor here in Philadelphia, and I want to say thank you.
It's our honor.
And I want you to know I'm grateful.
It's our honor, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're on the same boat.
See, that little punk Trump thought they were gonna back down. Philly was like, "No, player, you got the wrong Negroes." Took his ass to court and said, we got a little sheet of paper your little ass got to abide by. And that's exactly what happened. So that's how you supposed to do it, Greg.
That's absolutely right. In fact, I was there Sunday before last. I took some footage. I went there to look. And because I was, there. And thank you, man, for putting and platforming the good brother Michael Pfleger with the Avenging the Ancestors Coalition a couple of weeks ago. Mike's an attorney. They had a crack team who made those arguments. The judge, who was a George Bush appointee, by the way, was very quick. You could tell what was going to happen. And as you said, the city of Philadelphia had put in millions of dollars in partnership with the National Park Service, created that exhibit, and then turned it over. I found it quite striking, though, that there's a pavilion right between where the Liberty Bell is and where the president's house is, that has quotes from Maya Angelou and Dr. Du Bois and Francis Ellen Watkins Harper, has Adinkra symbols, Akan symbols, Sankofa and Saroma, in Chin. And as I was standing there Sunday before last, I thought to myself, this is crazy. They didn't touch this. And I think there's a lesson to be learned in this context. We exist as Black people only in relation to whites in their minds. The panels they took down about Ona Judge and Joe and all the Hercules and all the Africans who were in trafficked there relate to who Black people are to white people. They don't want to talk about slavery, the stuff that dealt with Africa and closing the loops, including a quote by Barack Obama on the outside of this pavilion, they didn't touch. Because in their mind, we don't exist until we come into the white universe in chains. It's a lesson there. And for me, I haven't heard the mayor of Philadelphia say anything about it. I haven't heard anybody else Black talking about the fact that in their attempt to dismantle things at the president's house, they didn't touch the part that dealt with where we came from. There's a profound lesson in that. It's almost like slaves without masters. In other words, you can't see that you come into the universe in relation to them. This is why I would not respond to a Bernie Moreno. This is why I don't care about a Pastor Wilson or a runt rooster Pete Hegseth or the racist Donald Trump or those bubblehead brothers. I don't know what this thing is with getting these men with no lips that sit around and put hair on their face to try to disguise the fact they have no chins. Yes, I'm talking about Brendan Carr and of course that nasty piece of work Russell Vogt. I don't care about any of them. We have to cut. This is, if nothing else, this is a lesson of Jesse Jackson's life. You focus on what you can change, you go within, you build coalition, and you break the back of that type of racism by organizing. That Philadelphia lesson, I think, like you said, is very important. They didn't have a legal leg to stand on. Their propaganda is now evaporating. I know we saw this week the Department of Education, that Dear Colleague letter, it's gone. The New Hampshire folks, my man Sharif El-Mekki, Center for Black Educator Development, the ACLU of New Hampshire and the National ACLU won in court. That Dear Colleague letter everybody was talking about from February 2025, where they had an injunction a month later, almost a little over a month later, it doesn't exist anymore. Let's stop self-checking. Stop self-checking. All the stuff they're doing is getting thrown out by the courts.
There you
so
go.
We have to remind them, it's a propaganda war, and they're losing, y'all.
Also,
so thank you, Roland, for platforming that story.
Also, one more story that is here in Florida. The bill by Senator LaVon Bracey Davis passed. It will provide compensation to the descendants of the Groveland Four Black men wrongfully convicted of raping a white woman in 1949 in Groveland, Florida. So just want to get that in. Got to go to a quick break. We come back. We'll pay tribute to Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., talking with his son, Congressman Jonathan Jackson. We'll talk to Cornel West and Father Michael Pfleger, three folks who obviously knew Reverend very well, of course, his son. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible to do what we do. Contribute to your Cash App using the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Credit cards as well. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 7-0196. PayPal R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo RM Unfiltered. Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
On A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right, we're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing, our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not. Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook, that's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
Welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
No, I actually said, y'all gonna play the. All right. Yesterday, the Jackson children had a news conference where they talked about their father, and here is some of that.
Our father is a man who dedicated his life to public service, to gain, protect, and defend civil rights and human rights, to make our nation better, to make the world more just, our people better neighbors with each other. Born in Greenville, South Carolina in 1941 in the throes of Jim Crow, he quickly became maladjusted to injustice. He challenged those entrenched Southern systems of poverty and racial inequality, landing in jail at 17 years old, protesting for the right to use a public library. He won that battle. He kept winning these fights against injustice and inequality all of his life. Through college, continuing the work to lead students to segregate lunch counters in Greensboro, North Carolina, to helping secure voters' rights, leading marches across the Edmund Pettus Bridge at the second and third marches in March 1965. To his work in Chicago, his tireless efforts with ministers and businessmen, and Operation Breadbasket, Operation Push Excel, and on to his national work with the Rainbow Coalition, the Rainbow Push Coalition, and the Wall Street Project. On the field of life, his shoes were well worn. His uniform, dirty with the stripes of imperfection, as he did his best to live up to his Christian calling. Reverend Jackson would say, "It is my religion that makes me political, not my politics that makes me religious." And we, his family, and the many others touched by him, inspired by him, are left obligated to continue his work to make our nation a better place for all through the techniques and tools and policy goals and platforms he championed and left us to use. And so now his soul is freed to be with our mighty ancestors. His remains left to be honored and remembered for his sacrifice.
As Reverend Jackson, who we called leadership, we called Reverend, but he wouldn't listen to me when I'd call him Reverend. He demanded that I call him Daddy. Because he said, I am that. Black men take a real knock for not being involved fathers, although the CDC showed us that black men are the most involved fathers in America. More involved than white fathers, Hispanic fathers, and our father took fatherhood very seriously. He took that charge. It was his charge to keep. And so today we celebrate his life, although his body is absent from us. His spirit suffuses and infuses us, and it charges us to continue with the work. Indeed, he has run his race.
Just want to say thank you so much for your prayers. It's been obviously a challenge, but I think we all feel the magnitude of this loss, but also the magnitude of a life well lived. And it's such an honor to be standing up here with my siblings and just thank all of you deeply from the bottom of our hearts for the love and support you've given our family at this time, and we share our love with all of you.
Dad believed that funerals were not for the dearly departed. He believed funerals were for the living. He believed that they were great gathering meetings, and no two life or lives in human history will have the same number of people attending their funerals, or the same people will be at their funerals, because your friends ain't my friends ain't your friends. We don't know the same people. You don't know the same people that I know. Do not bring your politics out of respect to Reverend Jesse Jackson and the life that he lived to these homegoing services. Come respectful and come to say thank you. But these homegoing services are welcome to all, Democrat, Republican, liberal, and conservative, right wing, left wing, because his life is broad enough to cover the full spectrum of what it means to be an American. We only ask people to come and be respectful in the context of the extraordinary life that he lived. Dad would have wanted us to have a great meeting to discuss our differences, to find ways of moving forward and moving together. And if his life becomes a turning point in our national political discourse, amen.
Folks, joining us right now, Dr. Cornel West, of course, who knew Reverend well. Dr. West, just share your thoughts, the loss of this historic international titan when it comes to civil and human rights.
Brother, first, I just want to thank you for your work, though, brother. You've been persistent. You've been persevering all these years and still holding up the bloodstained banner. And I say that in the name of the Black freedom struggle that produced the Jesse Jackson. And he's not isolated. You know that. We got Martin. We got Malcolm. We got Fannie Lou. You got Ella Baker. He is a great wave in the river of our movement, of our struggle for freedom. And he's a world historical figure, ain't no doubt about that. Nobody like that, brother. So much genius, so much style, so much sense of service, willingness to sacrifice, tell truths against the grain. I don't have a language to describe and capture his genius, though, brother, but I can tell you this, because I follow the same Jesus that he followed. I thank God that we had him for so long, but he lived under death threat for almost 60 years. You know what I mean? And the very fact that he was able to hold on for so long and allow his light to shine, we shall never, ever forget him. And when we talk about him, we talk about Helen, his precious mother, Noah, his precious father, Charles, his precious stepfather, and especially Matilda, who's his precious grandmama. That's the sources of the love, integrity, and the style that produced the giant Jesse Louis Jackson Sr.
The thing, Dr. West, that we've sort of been laying out is that Reverend Jackson passes at 84, but you had this continuum, him engaging at North Carolina A&T, joining the movement. Dr. King, Operation Breadbasket, morphing into Push Coalition, Rainbow Push, going from streets to the C-suites, going to Wall Street Project, Automotive Project, Citizenship Education Fund, and then Obama. I had to remind some people who were really upset with his comments about Obama. I said, yeah, but after Obama's there, who was leading the fight for opening up opportunities for black people in Silicon Valley? I said, it was Reverend Jackson. I said, so y'all act like, I said, so you can criticize Reverend, and I was one of the folks who criticized him directly when I had him on WVON radio. I ain't never had the problem, but I also had to remind them while I was criticizing him, I had no problem bringing him back on my show when he was checking Silicon Valley.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember you were there in Chicago. We were talking about Curtis Mayfield way back in 2006 when you had your show. But no, anytime we in a movement together, though, brother, we criticize each other because none of us have a monopoly on truth. But the thing is, the focus is on the suffering of our people. The focus is on the vision that inspires and tries to empower our people. But keep in mind now, my dear brother, that when you think about Jesse, you don't want to skip over, the Baptist churches there in Greenville that shaped him. You don't want to skip over the great Samuel Proctor, who was the president of North Carolina A&T, who allowed Jesse to get in without a letters of recommendation, without even kind of exams. He was going to be the first black quarterback, University of Illinois. White folk couldn't deal with it, so he went back to North Carolina A&T, became the great quarterback and student body president. See, those are the fundamental sources. And of course, there's Precious Jackie, his wife for 65 years. See, that's the raw stuff that sustained Jesse. And then he meets Martin, and then he takes off and soars like an eagle. And you should keep in mind, brother, he's a Christian minister who's also deep in love with Bobby Blue Bland, who in Bland studying the sermons of Reverend C.L. Franklin. See, Jesse is grounded in black culture at the deepest level, and that makes a difference. He's a spiritual property of the very black people who produced him, and he never, ever forgot about us, man. Never, ever.
Not forget about us. And somebody asked this question the other day. They said, Roland, who gonna give the eulogy? I was like, yeah, because when it came to a lot of major black funerals, Reverend Jackson gave the eulogy.
I know. That's the truth, though, man. Donnie Hathaway, Jackie Robinson, me and Tavis were talking about that on the show this morning, though, man. I mean, I don't think there's anybody worthy to give his eulogy, you know what I mean? But what can you say? What can you say? Somebody's got to be a bona fide Christian preacher who's been washed by the blood at the bottom of the cross and then connected to the struggle for freedom around the world, be it in the Middle East, be it in Asia, be it in Latin America, be it in the south side of Chicago, be it in Houston. I know a brother from Houston named Roland Sebastian. Yes, indeed. All of us part of that river I'm talking about with different waves, but the same river, brother.
The thing that, as we move forward, and I keep hearing this, people keep saying, who's next, what's next? What should folk be doing? Because when we look at our freedom fighters, listen, Andrew Young is 95. He's really the last of the civil rights lions. You still got some other folks who are still here, but the reality is that generation, the generation that were involved in the Black freedom movement, who, what I keep saying, the folk who were really involved, 70s, 80s, 90s, and the criticism that I have, Dr. West, is that, the criticism that I have is that Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha have been making withdrawals from the Black Bank of Justice and have not been making enough deposits.
Ooh,
these are the people who were going to the city council meeting, the county commissioners meeting, the school board meeting, the state house, who were going to Congress, who were keeping us informed. And this generation simply cannot accept that, oh, if we just tweet it or put it on TikTok, it has the same energy. No, you got to be on the ground touching people, talking to people, working with people. And I think that we got to have more folk who are in this fight as opposed to saying, well, they got it because those numbers are dwindling because those folks are becoming ancestors, or they're retiring because they are actually tired.
That's true, though. But, brother, I think the important thing to keep in mind, man, because we come from a great black people now. And many of us serve a great God. And my Bible says there's always going to be a cloud of witnesses of great courage and commitment and conviction who will speak the truth, who will bear justice, and we don't know who they are. There's no way under God's heaven in October 1941 that people would have chosen Jesse Jackson.
Yep.
We don't know. People wouldn't have chosen Ella Baker. We don't know. Ida B. Wells Barnett, we don't know. We don't know where they're coming from. Usually they're local, but the important thing is they got character, they got backbone, and they got a love of black people that's connected to solidarity with oppressed folks.
Well, I think
but
that's,
we just don't know.
but I think the key, what you just said there, is you have to have a love of black people. You cannot have a love of money. You cannot have a love of things. You cannot have a love of power. You have to have a love of black people. And when the beginning premise or your foundation is my love of black people, then everything else builds off from that.
That's exactly it, though, brother. You hit the nail on the head. In addition to that, I would say with the great D'Angelo, we just lost here in the Angie Stone last year. We pray for brother Michael, their son, their grandson. That D'Angelo used to say, my aim is to hold up the torch and pass it on to the younger generation by the example that I am. And that's a profound formulation. We learn it from our musicians. We learn it from our literary figures. You know, yesterday was Toni Morrison's birthday, right? Hey, we shall never, ever forget that. Same was true with Douglas last week. That tradition, that spectrum, that continuum that flows, and it's flowing in the younger generation. It's just that it's weaker and more feeble because they're up against more, but it's there. And God is not going to forsake us and abandon us, brother. And we're not going to abandon each other. No matter how small it seems, we bouncing back. We a bounce back people, brother. We're
a bounce back people, but what I say when people say, it's much more difficult, I say, I'm sorry. I cannot compare the water fountains and the dogs to what we deal with right now. I said, but the difference is there was a level of fearlessness where they said, no, I got to be willing to change this. And I say to young brothers and sisters, the couch cannot be an option.
That's the truth. That's the truth. And we want to take it back to Harriet Tubman. Back in the belly of the beast of barbaric slave plantations, each time, how did she go? Because she loved the people.
That's it.
She sacrificed. She served the people. It's much worse for Harriet than it is for us, even though we're dealing with this neo-fascist gangster of Trump and the Trumpism and all of the vicious white supremacy and predatory capitalism and imperialist policies around the world. But we have seen worse, brother. We got to keep swinging, that's all.
Got to keep swinging. Also, got to keep reading, because if you don't read the history, you don't know where you've been, don't know where you're going. Dr. Cornel West, I appreciate it, Frat. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, they love you, 06, brother.
Yes,
love
sir.
You, man.
Thanks a bunch. We talk about sacrifice. My next guest, he knows that, Representative Jonathan Jackson, one of the sons of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Jacqueline Jackson. Representative, glad to have you here. First of all, our condolences on the loss of your father, an absolutely great man. Just share with people. I talked about this idea, how you have to have a love of black people. And to my panel, get ready, because y'all going to be able to ask questions of Jonathan, too. Talk about that. What did your dad make clear to you and your brothers and sisters about the love of black people and why he was in this fight? Because he was gone from home a whole lot, fighting for a lot of folk who didn't fully love him back.
Yep. Thank you, Roland. Thank you so much for your prayers and other people that have prayed, and also pray for other families that are going through the same thing right now, the loss of a mother, father. I'm the first time having lost a parent, and I had to catch myself the other day, go from parents to parent. And so every day just feels just a little better, but the hole is big. And so for all those grieving, it's okay to grieve. I'm going through it right now. And I would tell you that my father, at the core, he's a minister. And he oftentimes told us that his religion makes him political. His politics doesn't make him religious. That if you follow the Gospels on feeding the hungry and visiting those that have been incarcerated and feeding the hungry, that housing the homeless, those are political priorities. And so that's where his compassion comes from. Very compassionate person. He's a minister at his core on his highest day and has all the frailties of any human being and all the love for Christ is what he lived for. And it's a selfless life. And so he told me he's a long distance runner, that he took his charge. He was 27 years of age when he was on the balcony, and Reverend Martin Luther King, his hero, his idol, his mentor and pastor, was assassinated, shot down, and he never looked back. He had a charge to keep and fulfilled that after he never stopped running. And so he never talked about that date. Only thing he didn't talk much about, I believe he was traumatized from it. And he never looked for a long distance planning. He had to deal with things that were spontaneous and have a goal in mind, but he never expected to live a long life. And so he just kept on fighting, stayed on the battlefield, and identified with the poor and those that were marginalized.
Every child wants to have their life filled. They want their parents coming to their games, coming to their schools for recitals, pulling on them, pulling on them. But you had to deal with so many others all around the country, the world, pulling on him. I told the story the other night. I said, Reverend Jackson, the only person you could see at a black mama's house in Alabama in the morning, and then on the evening news, he's sitting with the Pope at the Vatican.
I give you one story on that. The Haitians were being put basically into these same sort of camps that migrants are being put in now. And so we had gone to visit the Pope one day, and then the next day we were on our way to a jail by the time we got back to America to protest what was happening to the Haitians down in Miami. They were putting the Cubans into giving them green cards and work permits. And they were locking up the Haitians that were trying to come to America. And I had to tell him one time, when I had to try to figure out the enormity of dad, shall I say, if I got in trouble at school, it was like a little motorcade, 3 or 4 cars. And of course, everybody at the school knew who he was. And the whole classroom, the whole school on half of the building would be looking outside the window saying, there goes Reverend Jackson, there goes Reverend Jackson. And I'm like, that's not right. Why are you coming? He's coming up to see me and everybody knows I did something wrong. I'm like, that's not fair. So I'm like, hey man, we gotta just send mom up to the school. Don't you come up here and blow this out of perspective. But that's dad. But he was tender. But he was tough enough to fight and to stand up for what's right. And by being a long distance runner, I'm saying he didn't seek corporate boards and other things. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but always back to the streets, always back to the people. And thank you for the kind words and expressions people have given over the last couple of days. It's heartwarming. And the question was asked about the leadership. He didn't seek leadership, didn't choose it. I think it's an innate skill that some people have. He left being very, very hopeful. He saw a new group of young people, activists that have made it to the United States Congress. He sees and hears prophetic voices that are coming out of churches across the country. And so God will provide. He always said there was a God factor, that God is not through with us. It's a long distance journey. And I don't think it's right for people to think about a mantle being passed on. You don't inherit leadership. You don't have it because of your family. That's not what's passed on. It's time and circumstances and divine inspiration. So I am highly confident. It doesn't have to be one leader. It'll be multiple leaders. And so I don't think we should have our eyes set just on one person. God willing, that can happen. And if not, there's so many people that have the capacity to lead on so many levels. We don't need to have just one person at the top of a mountain.
My panelist questions, Cameron, you first for Representative Jonathan Jackson.
Representative, again, sending both my condolences and prayers to you and your family. Just as a point of privilege, a couple things. One, as also a PK born in Chicago, your father directly impacted my father after my dad crossed Omega Psi Phi and went into seminary up in Garrett. Reverend Jackson, your father spoke at the same church that he grew up in and was married in. And he always, we have a prominent picture up in our house of that moment. And as my father's gone on to his career, he always harkened back on that moment. And I had the chance to see him several times during my time, decade plus ago on Capitol Hill, and always was inspired. And that's kind of where my question leans into is Reverend Jackson's presidential run, and so much that he did help shore up so much of the Voting Rights Act and help shore up so much and really expand that in that movement. That platform, even in the 80s, kicked in and had reverberations for decades to come. And we've now seen that under assault. I'm just, I don't know as much as a question or a statement, but his powerful speech, his words, his chant of "I am somebody," how much pride he instilled, not just in Black people, but people as a whole. I think we need those words and that energy more than ever. And I'm encouraging you to encourage your colleagues to kind of stand with that same backbone and that fortitude now that one of our giants has gone on to glory. But there's so much we can learn and I think be energized in the times that we're in now by his legacy and by your legacy, even being sitting in the halls of Congress and with an ability to affect that in real time.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for that statement. I had the opportunity to be the co-chair of the National Prayer Breakfast probably about 2 weeks ago now. And I asked myself, what would my father want me to do? And so he always sought to bridge the gap. And we've prayed for people on death rows, and we prayed for people with Saddam Hussein to get people out of jail that were human shields and get prisoners released from war. So I believe in the power of prayer. So I wasn't afraid to be on the stage with the President Donald Trump and also speak truth to power. Last year, I was the co-chair for this past term. So I've been on the stage now with President Trump twice. And 2 years ago, I started my prayer off saying the divine, the eternal, the incomparable God, and then went into my prayer. And that was putting DEI front and center. This year, I started off the prayer saying in the Latin Imago Dei, and Dei spelled in Latin is DEI, and DEI simply means of God. And so, no, Congressman Cleo Fields and I, my colleague from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a dear friend of my father and great leader, we started the Congressional DEI caucus. We didn't retreat. Started it 1 week after President Trump gave his speech. It's not the Black Caucus DEI. That's something separate. DEI means something good for all people. So we've got all races and groups in this. It's not just limited to members like the Black Caucus for the Black Caucus, which I 100% support, agree with. But also the Asian Americans have benefited. Females have benefited from it. So Tim Kennedy out of upstate New York, Mark Pocan out of Wisconsin, Ro Khanna out of California, Madeline Dean out of Pennsylvania. We made sure that it was reflective of America and all the beneficiaries could speak up and be a part of that caucus. So I try to carry on that legacy. I will never, ever, ever fill my father's shoes. That's my hero, but I will forever always try to make him proud and stand in the gap, be courageous, and I know I'll see him again in heaven.
Reese?
Congressman Jackson, my condolences to you. It's such a monumental loss for us all, but especially for you all. My question is, your father was such a trailblazer, and he had multiple trailblazing presidential campaigns, and we've seen in light of Vice President Kamala Harris's loss, this kind of renewed conversation around electability. It's a big conversation right now with the primaries. Not that I'm expecting you to give any kind of endorsement or anything, but your father really blazed a trail in the idea and having the audacity to run and inject our demands and our citizenship into the conversation in a way that it probably wouldn't happen if there were only white candidates running. So what do you say to this conversation where it seems to be that the party is moving towards, let's not take any chances, let's go with the sure bet, which they want to classify as white candidates, and that black people should kind of step aside, stop being woke, stop trying to hold people's feet to the fire, and kind of trying to make the conversation erase our demands and our humanity from I mean, that's my perspective on it, but I'd be interested in hearing your perspective given what, Reverend Jesse Jackson really stood for in terms of pushing that envelope.
Well, thank you. Let me try to break that down. When my father ran for president, the first state you enter into the primary is Iowa. And there he beat President Joe Biden and Al Gore. And then the second state you run in is New Hampshire. Then you turn by way coming south to get to South Carolina, where he won. And so this is a message that we take to all human beings, and we don't have to. He was called the black candidate. He says, you don't have to call me black. That's self-identified. I mean, that it's obvious. And you don't say the white candidate. And so it was about taking the message to people that were in the margins. Farmers were losing, and working class people were not able to unionize. Reagan made a vicious attack on unionization. So we've seen the numbers of American unionization come down consistently over the last 40 years since Reagan, and onward with Newt Gingrich with Contract on America. And yes, that's true about the '84 campaign, but something that gets overlooked is on the Mondale campaign. My father challenged the party in 1984 to put a female on the ticket. That gave birth to Geraldine Ferraro getting on the ticket. So yes, we see Vice President Harris today, and that's a great thing. And I have enormous respect for her. But I was coming down the elevator the other day in Washington, D.C., and I bumped into my former colleague, Governor Abigail Spanberger, who just became governor of Virginia. And she started telling me, she says, Jonathan, I'm a huge fan of your father's. When I was in 1988, I was making Jesse Jackson buttons. And so I don't think we can narrow his universality, and whites that came up and were encouraged. Bernie Sanders had endorsed my father in '88 up in his hometown. Jamie Raskin used to work at the organization. So there's a group of progressive leadership that came out that, comes from our tradition, the Black church, the Black community, but it's universal leadership. And so right now we have a dearth of leadership in the United States of America. I wouldn't say in Black America. White America has some leadership problems, and the leadership that they've chosen is not the best that we have to offer for the nation.
Greg Carr.
Thank you, Roland. And thank you, Representative Jackson. Add my condolences and celebration of your father's life as he graduates to ancestorhood. I know what it's like, particularly for a son when your father makes transition. So, we cover you, we surround you, and we know that he will be a powerful ancestor. We're going to pray him on over. Kind of in the vein of what we've been talking about so far, night before last, when we talked about your father for about 4.5 hours, one of the consistent themes that kept coming up was his approach to electoral politics. And I love how you framed that his religion made him political, not the other way around. But I'm talking now, I want to talk a little bit and see if you can maybe share your thoughts on expanding the electorate. Clearly, there are enough people in this country to completely transform electoral politics if we can get them engaged. Your father was a master of doing that, and the people around him. What do you see going forward? And how can we expand the electorate, particularly when, as we know, the Democratic Party, even as it was transformed, pushed hard back against that expanding electorate that Jesse Jackson brought? to the table. What can we do to expand this electorate, get people registered, get people engaged, get people involved? Does it require the charisma of a Jesse Jackson, or are there other things we can use to supplement that? And thank you, brother.
Well, thank you so much. Sorry for your loss, and thank you all for this outpouring. But listen here, I am so happy. I'll tell you one thing before I answer your question. When it was pretty clear my father wasn't going to be walking again, he was wheelchair bound, I was leaving the doctor's office with him and kind of say it. And the doctor was pretty much saying, we got to give him a better wheelchair and things like that. And my father looked at me and smiled and said, I'm going to walk again. And I'm like, okay, Dad, as we were trying to get him to therapy. And then he looked at me and smiled and said, in heaven, there are no wheelchairs. And so, you know, he was just a very eternal, optimistic person. And what did he tell me? He says, we have to do voter registration, massive voter registration. We have to overwhelm the polls. Vice President Harris received 75 million votes. Roughly, President Trump received 77 million votes. And 90 million people did not vote. None of the above won. That was the margin of our despair. There were roughly 5 million people that have paid their debt to society that have now been taken off of the voter rolls, that have been made into permanent second-class citizens because they don't have the right to vote. So we have to restore citizenship to people that paid their debt to society. That's an issue that I'm going to have upcoming, that I want to find a pathway to people that have come to the country and they can dream, but I also want to have something for the believers. I would saw the migrants as the dreamers and the African-American community as the believers. We fought in every war. We've never stopped. And if you've paid your debt to society and we're disproportionately locked up and then paid our debt here again, how is it that we don't get our full rights restored of citizenship? You're not a citizen if you cannot vote. 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. 13th, abolishing slavery. 14th, equal protection under law. 15th, the right to vote. Well, if you lose your right to vote, you can't sit on a jury, which means you can't get equal protection under the 14th Amendment, which means you are a derivative of some form of slavery. So yes, we have to make that a popular cause, and we have to make voting a family tradition. Education, he would tell you, has to be a family tradition where you turn off the television, sit around the table, and the family reads together. We have to make voting a family tradition before we talk about the barbecue and the picnic and having all of the things. Do a voter registration drive in your own house and check people's voter registration cards before they come into the house. We have the power, and people have died and have suffered too much. And so don't do less than your best, he would tell me all the time. And that's what we have to do. We have the numbers. And so under this current administration, because they can't get their numbers up, now they're going to start voter suppression to try to take our numbers down. What does that tell you? We have the numbers. Why is there the attack on DEI? Because it was so successful. And so they started dismantling it. And who did they attack first? It was the African-American female community. Over 450,000 African-American women that are highly educated, the best educated class group of people in the country, were targeted by Elon Musk and Doge and all of these other people. So no, we have to challenge this. And that's our goal.
Well, Representative Jackson, you talk about making the family affair. That's the reason why when we get our news set, I say, well, I don't want just the colors. I hit up my man Leroy Campbell, the great artist. I got a lot of his work at home. And so I said, Leroy, I need something for my set, for my news desk. He said, I got a great idea. So he printed out on canvas his artwork, Remember to Vote. And so if you see this art, so this is, every time we go live, people see this.
I love it.
They don't realize that artwork is showing every facet of Black America. It's the kids are there. You see Big Mama. You see a father. You see a daughter. You see a mama. You see young folks. And that's exactly what this artwork, we have it on both sides of our news desk for that very reason. And that's what we show it every single day. So we agree with you 100%. Congressman, I got a couple of text messages. I know the email went out, the post went out yesterday. There have been some alterations made to the funeral schedule. And so there'll be celebrations in Chicago, South Carolina, and D.C., correct?
Yes, sir. So if somebody preempted that, so call that fake news. Sorry for that misinformation, but we're going to get it out. South Carolina legislature have honored him by asking him to lie in state in the rotunda of South Carolina. And that's so huge when you think about Charleston and the slave ships and talk about the Jim Crow South my father grew up in. He got arrested in South Carolina trying to use a public library, couldn't use, my grandmother and great grandmother couldn't use public bathrooms, had Negro and white folks bathrooms. And in his lifetime now, for a son of South Carolina to be in the rotunda, the same state capital that had no Negroes, no Jews, and no dogs signs when he was a child, is truly an honor. So we want to honor his home state, and we're still making some arrangements for Washington, D.C. So please give me another 24 hours, and would love to get people all the information out, and every expression of kindness we're grateful for.
Well, absolutely, and so we will let our folks know about that as well. Representative Jonathan Jackson, I certainly appreciate it, my brother. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. Love to everyone. Thank you for honoring my father, and God bless your family.
Absolutely.
Keep hope alive.
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. Folks, yesterday at the news conference, Jonathan's brother, former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., had some words to say to the media about how they have always portrayed Reverend Jackson. Check this out.
I associate myself with what Ashley had to say, but let me also be candid, because I'm old enough to remember, along with Santita and Jonathan, all of it. Come on. The caricature that you've created as a media of who our father is not the reality of who we know him to be. So what's happening now on social media is a more accurate depiction of the work of Jesse Jackson, and it's happening and occurring without you. That's the truth. Because institutional media has historically controlled the narrative of who Jesse Jackson is. You've made him to be more controversial than he is, than he was.
Last question. Hi. One second.
You've made him less multinational than he is. You've tried to make him someone from a side of town and not universal. Today, the King of England has issued a statement about the life of Jesse Jackson and its importance. One newspaper is hung up on how many mayors he confronted. All of them were small by comparison to Jesse Jackson. He knew as they came and went that he was the constant. And our community could count on that. And so again, the caricature of who you think he was compared to the reality of the education campaign that is taking place independent of you is what's taking place. And as that figure begins to emerge in contemporary thinking, I'm confident that the people, my mother said it this way, history is going to be far kinder to Jesse Jackson than the life that he lived.
Wow. This is our last question. Cheryl Corley from National Public
That was
Radio.
former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. My next guest knew Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. very well. Numerous times they marched together, prayed together in the streets of Chicago, kicking butt, taking names. He is a bad brother. I call him sober. Matter of fact, I think in the annals of history, they probably will remember Father Pfleger more than they remember Larry Bird when it comes to rolling deep with black folks. So Father Michael Pfleger joins us right now. He is, again, Father Pfleger, always good to see you, my brother.
Good to see you, man. Much love.
Look, y'all go way back, so just Just share your thoughts about this unbelievable freedom fighter.
Well, we do go way back. When I first came to St. Sabina's back in '75, you know, Reverend Jackson always had Christmas Day. Everybody dropped in his house Christmas Day, in and out all day long. And somebody invited me to go over there to his house. And I went and shared in the conversation along with others. And when I was leaving out, it was the first time I had met Reverend. And when I was leaving out, going to my car, Reverend came outside and he said, first time he ever said it, and everything he called me every day since, Pfleger, Pfleger. I said, yeah. He said, come here. And he said, you know, I'm always very skeptical and discerning of why people coming in the Black community till I know about them and know if they're committed or not. And he said, but you made sense. You made sense then. We're going to talk. And sure enough, the next week, we sat down and had a long conversation. Ever since then, you know, the kind of guy he was, Roland, was, remember one time we got arrested together at Chuck's gun shop. And we're sitting in jail out in Riverdale. And he turned to me and he said, Pfleger, what are we going to do next after we get out of here? I said, Reverend, let's get out of here right now. But that was the kind of person he was. But he, and a lot of times we hear about, you know, or heard in the news stories and the rest about, you know, the doors that he opened and the jobs he called and the positions that people got because of him. I mean, he literally confronted the Democratic Party. He made it a more inclusive party. But nobody knows all the calls he made on the side, all the private meetings, all the private things he did to try to get people into positions for elected officials, and private conversations with mayors and governors and folks to make sure that equity and equality were on the move. And when the door was shut, you know, he was never afraid to kick it in. And so I think one thing, Roland, that I said this to him. I was there. Mrs. Jackson had invited me to come over Monday night because they knew it wasn't going to be long. And I went over there Monday evening, and her and I went in the room and prayed with him. One of the things I said to him, they believed he could still hear. I don't know if he could or he couldn't, but I told him, I said, you know, I don't believe you were ever appreciated the way you should have been in this country, in this city. I said, but know that God was watching, and God was seeing everything you did. And while you may not have gotten the applause you deserved here, that in heaven, there was a deep applause going on. We laid I'm seeing the picture there of the room 306. We at 50th anniversary, he and I laid the wreath together outside of the room 306.
But that's what we're showing right now. That's what we're showing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. And when we shut down the Dan Ryan, you know, he said, I'm going to go with you. And stood there with me, and we sat in that hot sun for an hour, going back and forth, arguing with the state police, and them telling us we couldn't go, and we telling them we're going to go. And it's just been a long, I mean, Roland, there would have been no, I don't care what anybody says, there would have been no Barack Obama without Jesse Jackson.
Oh, I mean, we walked through the other night. We walked through all of that, explaining to people just the reality of how the situation was set up. If you won, we're going to take all. And if you won the large states, the reality is in 2008, Hillary Clinton won California. She won Texas. She won Ohio. She won Pennsylvania. She won New York State. She wins New Jersey. Florida and Michigan, because they jumped the line, they didn't count their delegates. The reality is, if the 1988 rules are in place, Obama has no chance, and all those superdelegates are going to go towards Hillary Clinton. And so that's just, right. It's called math. It's called math. He doesn't change those rules. Reverend Jackson, Dr. Ron Walters, Ron Brown, there is no pathway for an Obama in 2008.
Exactly. And, you know, I remember that night. In fact, I was so upset because I saw while there was people in the VIP sections and the rest, Reverend Jackson was standing out with the people in tears, as we've all seen those pictures coming down his eyes. And when I saw those tears, I was so hurt because I said he should have been, first of all, in the VIP section, but enough of that. But I called him right there while he was standing there and said, Reverend, just know as you're looking up at that stage, that stage is only happening tonight because of you. And thank you. Thank you for what you did for what we're seeing today. And he just thanked me and was, tears in his voice and in his eyes. And, I just think people, I remember being with him at places, Rowan, with children. One of them being right in our own school. And to see little kindergartners and first graders looking up at him saying back, I am somebody, with these great big grins on their face. What it meant to children, what it meant to adults, the self-esteem, the self-love, the power realization of who people are. He visualized what hope was, keeping it alive. He visualized it. He didn't just say, he was, as I heard Jonathan saying, he was the continual optimist. He was always positive. And when, I remember having a conversation about some things with him about, well, how is this ever going to happen? He said, well, we just find a way to make it happen. That's all.
This was Reverend Jackson.
That's who he was.
To your point, this is Reverend Jackson right here when he's on Sesame Street. And that's also the thing I don't think people, he was a tremendous pop culture figure. We talked about it. On SNL, on Sesame Street. In fact, we're going to play it after our interview, on A Different World. And so that's what people really don't understand. And listen, everybody talk about Nancy Reagan's sitting on the drugs. No, Reverend Jackson, down with dope, up with hope. That was stuff that was being repeated and reframed. So in many ways, it's a mantra. There are folk in the religious world often talk about repeating certain phrases that essentially is a prayer. And so when you begin to repeat that, you begin to believe that, well, that's what he was actually doing. And a lot of our folk don't, and I think people today have to recognize times. Reverend Jackson is really coming of age in the 70s and 80s. King is assassinated April 4th, 1968. If you talk about, let's just say Reagan gets elected, inauguration is 1981, that's just almost 13 years after King has been assassinated. We're not talking about a long period of time. So that period of the 70s and the 80s, we were still operating. Again, I was born November 14, 1968. Reverend Jackson runs in 84. I'm 15. So that whole phase, he was speaking to a post-civil rights movement generation while also representing that baby boomer generation that was alive and present during the Black Freedom Movement.
Absolutely. And, I've said it here in a couple of interviews in Chicago, and I know we're doing it at our school. I said, one of the things to note with all the information you just gave us, I said, every school in Chicago this week should be having their students Google and research Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. and write something about that they learned about him. We cannot let happen here what we've allowed to happen with King. Yes, young people about Dr. King, oh, I have a dream.
Right, one speech.
People need to know.
Yeah.
Right. And only one part of that speech. But we need to do research him. As there's two things. Somebody asked me in an interview the other day, so what's two things you think as we mourn his loss? I said, two things are this. Number one, we should have all of our children researching Jesse Louis Jackson. So every child in school from kindergarten to senior high school learns something about him in depth and all that he did accomplish, and all he stood for in this nation, then just keep hope alive. Secondly, we need to make the midterm elections in this country, the tribute to Jesse Jackson. If there's any insistent on Roland, it was registering to vote and vote. We want to honor him. Let's honor him by saying the midterm elections, we're going to register and we're going to vote in honor of Jesse Louis Jackson Sr.
Yeah. Comments from our panel. Greg, you first.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you as always, Father Pfleger. As you probably heard Representative Jonathan Jackson say, his father, his religion made him political, not the other way around. I think about you, I think about our dear friend and brother and elder Jeremiah Wright and others who are, truly spirit warriors, who are not politicians, but who have involved themselves in the political universe. Could you give us your thoughts, if you don't mind, about the nature of the spiritual warfare that's going on in this country and how folks who are calling themselves Christians are really engaged in a form of, I wouldn't stop short of calling it evil, and maybe give us your insight as to how we should push back and fight, drawing from the tradition that you work in, the Reverend Wright works in, and the Reverend Jackson worked in. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. I really believe that this is a moment right now in this country for what's going to be the future. It's a crossroads. What's going to be the future of institutionalized religion? I think institutionalized religion is right now at a point where they're going to either become relevant or they're going to become non-existent. I believe that the Christian white right has been allowed to change the narrative, hijack Jesus, and redefine the Bible because we've been so quiet. And so they now control the narrative out there and justifying all, and it's not the first time it's been done. They used it to justify slavery, justify lynching, but it's being done again now. And the church has been so quiet. So I think this is the moral moment for religion to stand up and be who we say we are. Whether it's the Bible, the Quran, or the Torah, the foundation of all of our books is justice and freedom and the care for the most vulnerable. And it is time for us to be loud, to be strong, to be bold, to be courageous, to be exposing this hijacked Jesus. Gardner Taylor said it best, I don't care what you do, but stop doing it in the name of Jesus. It's the time for the faith community to stand up. Jeremiah Wright and Jesse Louis Jackson should not be looked at as fringe of Christianity. They're the DNA of Christianity. The DNA of the Bible and of Jesus is justice. It's not some tag on to our faith. He began with, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, anointed me to bring good news to the poor. All the preaching and teaching did, blessed are the peacemakers. What you ever do for the least your brothers. It was about justice. It's the DNA of our faith. And if we don't speak up loud and strong now, I think institutionalized religion is on hospice.
Cameron.
Hi, Reverend Pfleger. You spoke to it a little bit in some of the images and video Roland's team showed of Reverend Jackson and Sesame Street and all the different cultural places. Like I believe, in some sense, he was the next generation's public-facing Martin Luther King public. He was such a central Black leader across both pop culture and in political culture. But one thing that you mentioned and we talked about in this midterm election and that we're going into is the need to inspire and the need to turn out, the need to educate the next generation, the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas, the millennials, the next generations who may not have seen the heyday of Jesse Jackson, but may be familiar with Keep Hope Alive, may be familiar with I'm Black and I'm Proud, may be familiar with I Am Somebody, or they may not. How do we take the spirit of Jesse Jackson's movement, Jesse Jackson's words and his power, and really instill that in this next generation, not just to learn about him in schools, but to actually turn that into action at the voting booth?
Thank you. I think I think that's our challenge right now, and that's why I was trying to say, I would love to see us really research and put out in every area, every field we can, what he did in terms of changing the Democratic Party, opening it up, pushing its doors, making it inclusive. And the importance, I don't think, in my lifetime, and I'm old, I don't ever heard anybody that more spoke about the importance of registering and the importance of voting as Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. I think we need to revive and share and study and put that stuff out there more now than ever so people hear this. And then I think we've got to encourage people to let's honor him by continuing to do what he challenged us to do, what he fought to do, what he lived and died doing. Jesse always used to say, you know, if we fight, we win. If we don't fight, we don't win. And I think we got to remember that. And I think the other part of that is I think the Democratic Party has to wake up. You know, the Democratic Party, I think for too long has, you know, just run on we're better than. That don't work in Gen Zs and millennials. That don't work with young people better than. No, let's be right. Let's do justice. Let's fight. I mean, if we didn't learn from Mandani in New York, who had the Democrats and the Republicans against him, but he identified with people and just said, these are the concrete things we're going to do. We can, I don't believe at this time, have a Democratic Party that is afraid to call genocide genocide. I don't think we have a Democratic Party that can afraid to call racism racism. If we don't have the courage in the party, don't expect people to run to you. So I think two things to answer your questions real quickly is, one is we've got to educate people on the importance of registering and of voting. But secondly, we've got to give people something to vote for. And we've got to have candidates. That's why I don't hook myself to candidates. I like to hook myself not to personalities, but to policy. Because if you hook it to a personality, that personality may go crazy, and I ain't going to be a part of that. They got to give us the policies to give us something to vote for. And they got to have the courageous policies that stand for things and stand right for things. And if they're not willing to do that, I think, you know, we too often blame people for not voting. And I think it's time we also, because one of the reasons people are not voting is because you're not giving me something to vote for.
Absolutely nailed it. Well, we appreciate you joining us to share your thoughts and reflections about Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. Again, we've got the information. He'll be lying in state at Rainbow Push next Friday. And then there will be ceremonies in South Carolina, Washington, D.C., and the funeral services. The funeral services will take place. The People's Celebration will take place on March 6th at the House of Hope in Chicago, and then there will be a private ceremony on March 7th at Rainbow Push there in Chicago, which of course was his base of operation for the last 50 years. Father Pfleger, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rev. Appreciate you. Love you.
Yes, sir. Love you as well. Folks, that is it for us. It is tomorrow. First of all, let me thank Reese, let me thank Cameron, let me thank Greg for being on today's show. Folks, thank you so very much. We are going to, hey, what's the video I was going to play? I was going to play something afterwards. What were we going to play? Oh, yeah. So let's go ahead and play that there. This was when Reverend Jesse Jackson was on A Different World. Now, first of all, that was this one. The setup was when he came in, Dwayne was like, you know what, you look like that guy, Reverend Jackson. You even sound like it. Was kind of like, yeah, that's me. But this also shows you why black shows created by black folks, written by black folks, directed by black folks, produced by black folks are important. Reverend Jackson was on A Different World, talking to a generation. I was in college. Again, y'all, this is what we're talking about. Think about it. When you look at present day politicians, you can't think about folk who are appearing on a popular sitcom. That's how huge Reverend Jackson was. This is when he was on A Different World.
Earlier today, as I contemplated this lecture tonight, I thought about a young man who had been in a rather sad and melancholy mood, feeling insignificant, impotent, worthless, that he did not count. As I thought about him, it occurred to me that his real problem was he felt that as one person, he could not make a difference. The change in America that's taken place in the last 30 years has occurred because somebody thought that they could make a difference.
That's right.
The changes did not come from Wall Street, or the White House, or the Congress, the courts. They always started by some young person who thought that they could, in fact, make a difference.
Yes.
Rosa Parks got on a bus one day. The sign above the driver's head read, "The colored seat from the rear, white seat from the front. Violators will be punished by law." She refused to go to the back of the bus.
Yes, you did.
And she was arrested. Dr. King went to her rescue, a 26-year-old student, and told her, "Better let you walk in dignity than ride in shame. One person can make a difference." In 1957, 9 students at Little Rock Central High in Arkansas went to school one day led by the Army. They refused to bow. They made a difference.
Made a difference.
In the next few years, young America died that we might live. Medgar Evers was killed in cold blood about this right to vote. Serena Goodman and chained 2 Jews and an African American were bulldozed to death with their eyes wide open in Philadelphia, Mississippi, about this right to vote. Jimmy Lee Jackson's 15-year-old African American student shot and killed in Marion, Alabama, about this right to vote. 4 darling little girls blown up in the church in Birmingham, Alabama one Sunday morning, all about the right to vote. They made a difference.
Made a difference. Yes, yes.
You must make a difference. Whenever students are sober and sane and sensitive and put hope in their brains and not dope in their veins, they can always make a difference.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Yes, it can.
Because they died, your generation has the power. John Kennedy was elected by a margin of 112,000 votes. Less than 1 vote per precinct. Everybody counts. Nixon beat Humphrey by 550,000 votes. Carter beat Ford by 1.7 million. Fewer than 3 million votes elected 3 presidents in 16 years. Today, there are 3.2 million high school seniors alone graduating. They should come across that stage with a diploma in one hand and a voter card in the other, because they can make a difference. 12 million college students must vote. You have the power. You must not have the attitude.
Yes.
It's not my aptitude, but my attitude that determines my altitude or how high I will go.
Yeah.
My mind is a pearl. I can learn anything in the world. Just because it rains, I don't have to drown.
Well,
I may have been born in the slum, but the slum was not born in me. I can rise above my circumstance. Hands that once picked cotton can now pick presidents. You want to free Mandela and free South Africa? Let's vote about it. Let's vote about it.
Folks, Reverend Jesse Jackson on A Different World. That is it for us, folks. I'm going to see you tomorrow. I'm going to be broadcasting from College Station, Texas. Look forward to being there with my Alpha brothers. And so flying to Dallas to vote and then driving down there on Sunday. On Sunday, I'm going to be speaking. That's Black History Month program, 10 a.m. On Sunday. I will be at Corinth Church. Located at 4901 Providence Street. So we have the graphic for you there as well. So look forward to that. Folks, that's it. Don't forget, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. And that if you want to support us, via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. That's also for credit cards. Also, of course, checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037 0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo's RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get our Roland Martin unfiltered gear. Go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Shopblackstarnetwork.com. And of course, you can do that. And of course, we also, our hats, t-shirts, all of our merchandise, you can check that out. Then of course, y'all, we've got all of our black-owned products. And so all the products that you see right here are our products. And so all of this is available on shopblackstarnetwork.com. We've got, you name it, our candles, our facial, we got creams, we got sauces, seasoning, all sorts of stuff. Everything you see right here are black-owned companies. So go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Don't forget, download the app Fanbase for that as well. Folks, that's it. I'll see you tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.